it should have been. He scooped up a pile of shirts and threw them into the case. Sweet Jesus, he thought, please not the Gestapo. Neatly, Farah, you get so much more in if you pack it neatly, don't you? Look, I'm sorry about last night, Farah said quickly. His German was fast and fluent, and he had a salesman's confidence in the power of his own voice. I had a bit to drink, and the girl... The tall man slapped him. Silence, please, he said politely. Farah picked himself up again. Some clothes went in the suitcase, others in the wardrobe, and the chest of drawers. Meanwhile, the man on the bed leafed through Farah's order book. Farah noticed that the thieving bastards had even been at his brandy. The bottle, nearly empty, was on the bedside table. Beside it was a tumbler with a couple of inches of brandy still in it. The man on the bed looked up. Business has not been good lately? Farah nodded. There wasn't much demand for box sets of British Grenadiers in the Third Reich. That was one reason why he had taken the other job when they offered it to him. I expect you find it hard to make ends meet. Again, Farah nodded. It seemed safer to agree. Besides, the man on the bed was quite right. He wondered whether they were going to beat him up before they arrested him, or wait until they had him in custody. Escape was out of the question. His captor's combined weight was 3 or 4 times his own, and both men would be armed. The door was locked. Even if he could open the window and dive through, he doubted if he would survive the drop of 50 or 60 feet to the street below. Shouting for help would be useless, for it was obvious that they had the cooperation of the manager. But they wouldn't kill him. He was sure of that. A murdered British citizen would lead to awkward questions, even in Vienna. They would interrogate him, of course, and if he was dead, he couldn't tell them anything. But the worst he had to fear was a jail sentence and perhaps a little preliminary suffering. They might not realize the significance of what they had found. The man on the bed tore a blank page from the order book and wrote something on it with a silver pencil. Farah bundled a pair of shoes into the bottom of the wardrobe. At last the room was clear. The man in the camel-hair coat patted his shoulder. Gut, he said encouragingly. Sehr gut. Have a drink, said the man on the bed. He beckoned Farah closer and jerked his head towards the tumbler. Go on, drink, he said irritably. It may be your last chance for some time. Farah picked up the glass. The probable consequences of throwing its contents into the Bavarian's face chased through his mind. The Bavarian shook his head. Don't be silly, Farah. There are 2 of us. Hurry, please, the man in the camel-hair coat said. He looked ostentatiously at his watch. Farah shrugged. He picked up the glass and had his last drink. George Farah died on Wednesday, the 15th of February, 1939. The fact that he had died was more important than how and why, at least to Michael. But much later, Michael became curious about all aspects of the little man's death. This was because he came to see the murder of Farah as the starting point for what came afterwards. He realized that this was an arbitrary choice. Equally logically, he might have chosen Farah's birth, or the Anschluss, or even, to stretch a point, the Great War. But, being an artist of sorts, he considered that human beings had a fundamental need to create patterns from the chaos of history and from their own messy lives. A pattern had to start somewhere. Even the author of Genesis had to face up to this problem. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So Michael's pattern began with Farah's death. If Farah had reached London the following weekend, a world war might have taken a slightly different course. His death sent ripples even further into the future. It touched, perhaps marginally, on the rise and fall of empires. In the final analysis, however, Michael was more concerned with the effects of Farah's death on himself and on people he was later to know. That was where it mattered. Michael took things personally, which was why he was never particularly successful at his job. Uncle Claude never made that mistake. Despite the fact that Michael had never met Farah, he came to feel an almost